What if mammoths are still alive? Imagine a world where the woolly mammoth never disappeared. These massive, shaggy creatures, towering at over 3 meters tall with curved tusks stretching up to 4 meters long, still roam the tundras, forests, and plains of the earth. The extinction of the mammoth, which happened around 4,000 years ago, has always been a mystery filled with theories about overhunting, climate change, and habitat loss. But what if they had survived? What would it mean for humans, ecosystems, and the balance of the world today? First, let's explore the ecological perspective. Mammoths were not just giant animals wandering the frozen landscapes. They were keystone species, meaning they played a critical role in shaping their environment. By grazing vast areas, trampling shrubs, and knocking down trees, mammoths maintained grassland ecosystems that supported countless other animals. If they were still alive today, large parts of Siberia, Canada, and Alaska might look very different, more open grasslands instead of dense forests. This could change the biodiversity of these regions, providing habitats for grazing animals like bison, horses, and antelope, while also supporting predators such as wolves and big cats. Their survival would also have a direct effect on climate change. Scientists have argued that mammoths help slow down permafrost thawing. By keeping the tundra as grassland, they prevented the soil from absorbing too much sunlight, reducing the release of carbon dioxide and methane trapped beneath. If mammoths were alive today, the Arctic might be more resilient against global warming. Imagine herds of mammoths stomping the snow, compacting it, and allowing cold air to keep the ground frozen, effectively acting as natural climate engineers. Now, let's shift to the human dimension. For early humans, mammoths were both a blessing and a challenge. They provided food, bones for tools, hides for clothing, and even tusks for trade and art in the modern era. If mammoths were alive, they would occupy a position similar to elephants, but with far more cultural and economic implications. Imagine safari tours in Siberia, where people travel to witness giant herds of mammoths. National parks would be established specifically to protect them, just like we have reserves for elephants, rhinos, and tigers. They could become a symbol of conservation, representing resilience and the connection between ancient Earth and the modern world. But with humans involved, challenges would inevitably arise. Mammoths, like elephants, could come into conflict with farmers and rural communities. They would need vast territories to graze, and in a human-dominated planet, that land is scarce. A herd of mammoths wandering into farmland could destroy crops in hours. Managing human-mammoth conflict would be a huge task. Governments and conservation groups would need to create protected corridors, balance agriculture with wildlife, and possibly even compensate farmers for damages. The question would be, do we value them enough to give them the space they need? The presence of mammoths would also reshape global economies. Ivory tusks, larger than any elephants, would be highly sought after, possibly leading to intense poaching, unless strict protections were enforced. On the positive side, mammoths could drive ecotourism industries, especially in places like Russia, Canada, and Mongolia. Tourism revenue could encourage governments to preserve their habitats, much like gorillas in Rwanda or elephants in Kenya. From a cultural standpoint, mammoths would deeply influence human imagination. These creatures are already legendary in human history, painted on cave walls and depicted in myths. If they still existed, we wouldn't just see them in museums or movies. We would see them alive on documentaries, nature channels, and perhaps even in viral videos. Children might grow up dreaming of seeing a mammoth, the way they dream of seeing lions or whales. Zoos might attempt to keep them, though their massive size and need for cold environments would make that incredibly difficult. Imagine the engineering required to build a modern mammoth enclosure with snowy landscapes and artificial habitats. The ecological impact would extend far beyond just cold regions. If mammoths roamed in significant numbers, their grazing habits could prevent forest overgrowth, which in turn could reduce the spread of wildfires in certain ecosystems. They would act as natural landscapers, shaping the vegetation and ensuring a balance between grasses and trees. This, in turn, would influence the populations of herbivores and predators, maintaining a dynamic balance in ecosystems. The ripple effects could be enormous. Species that went extinct due to the disappearance of grasslands might have survived alongside mammoths. Let's also think about the scientific impact. If mammoths had never gone extinct, the field of paleontology and genetics would be very different. Instead of cloning attempts and extinction projects, we would be studying living populations of mammoths in real time. Conservation biology would expand to include these megafauna, and research into their genetics might even help us understand human adaptation to cold environments. Scientists could study how mammoths resist frostbite, how they digest grasses in frozen lands, how their fur evolved to withstand ice age conditions. These insights could inspire innovations in medicine, biotechnology, and even fashion industries for synthetic cold-resistant fabrics. Of course, their survival could also come with risks. Mammoths, like elephants, would require vast amounts of food, up to 200 kilograms of vegetation per day. In modern times, with shrinking wilderness, could the Earth sustain such populations without major conflicts? Governments might need to invest heavily in conservation areas. Then if mammoths lived in Asia, would they be pushed into the same struggles as elephants' fragmented habitats, poaching, and human hostility? It's possible mammoths would face the same endangered status, despite having survived the Ice Age. Another interesting angle is the psychological and philosophical one. If mammoths were alive today, humanity's perception of extinction would be altered. Extinction might not seem so permanent if one of the most iconic Ice Age animals still lived among us. This could impact how people think about conservation, possibly motivating stronger efforts to protect endangered species like rhinos, whales, and tigers. The presence of mammoths could serve as a reminder that humans are not the sole rulers of Earth, that we share it with giants from another era. Let's not forget the geopolitical aspect. Countries with mammoth populations would gain a unique advantage. Russia, Canada, Mongolia, and perhaps northern European nations would hold some of the most valuable megafauna in the world. These animals could become a matter of international interest, with debates over ivory trade, conservation funding, and tourism rights. It might even lead to global treaties similar to those protecting whales. Just like oil or rare minerals, mammoths could become a symbol of national pride and resource management. The entertainment and cultural industries would also explode with inspiration. Movies, literature, and video games often feature mammoths as mythical creatures. If they were alive, we'd have real-life footage, shaping the way they are represented. 8. Documentaries like Planet Earth or Our Planet would dedicate episodes to them, showing breathtaking migrations of woolly mammoths across frozen plains. This would change the way we think of prehistoric life, not as something long gone, but as something still walking among us. Looking at the broader planetary impact, mammoths could even influence the carbon cycle. By transforming tundra forests into grasslands, they would lock carbon in soil more effectively, slowing down climate change. This means their existence could directly impact our fight against global warming. If mammoths still roam today, perhaps the Arctic permafrost crisis would not be as severe as it is. In this way, these giants might have been an unseen ally in humanity's greatest environmental challenge. But what about the dangers? Large animals often come with risks. A startled mammoth could icily crush vehicles, damage infrastructure, or even threaten human lives. Just as elephants can be dangerous in certain contexts, mammoths would require respect and careful management. Would humans accept living alongside such giants, or would fear push us to confine them in reserves? This tension between awe and fear would shape our relationship with mammoths. Mammoths could also influence agriculture in surprising ways. Their grazing would create open grasslands that might later be used for sustainable grazing by livestock. Farmers in northern regions could find themselves coexisting with mammoth herds, much like pastoralists live alongside elephants in Africa. However, balancing this coexistence would be tricky while mammoths create fertile grazing lands. Their immense appetites could also devastate crops. This could lead to new farming innovations, protective barriers, and even cultural adaptations to living side by side with Ice Age giants. In terms of transportation and exploration, mammoths might even inspire humans in unexpected directions. Before modern vehicles, strong animals were often used to carry loads or assist with movement across difficult terrains, while it's unlikely mammoths would be domesticated like horses. There might have been attempts to train or partially manage them in certain regions, especially among indigenous peoples. This could have created unique bonds between humans and mammoths. similar to the historical relationships between humans and camels, elephants, or yaks. Imagining mammoths as part of human survival strategies in the Arctic opens a whole new layer of possibilities. Finally, the existence of mammoths would remind humanity of the fragility of balance between species survival and extinction. Seeing them alive would not only inspire awe, but also force us to take a harder look at how many species we've already lost and are still losing today. Would mammoths alive in the 21st century make us more committed to protecting biodiversity? Or would they fall victim to the same human pressures: habitat destruction, hunting, and climate change? The answer to that question could define whether our world becomes a sanctuary for all life or a place where even giants cannot survive. In conclusion, the survival of mammoths into the modern era would change everything from ecosystems and climate to human culture, science, and geopolitics. They would stand as living relics of the Ice Age, reminding us of Earth's deep past while actively shaping its present. Perhaps the most profound impact would be psychological, knowing that something so ancient and majestic still shares our planet. It would remind us that extinction is not just a scientific term, but a reality with deep consequences. Mammoths alive today would challenge humanity to rethink our relationship with nature. Or we protectors, exploiters, or just fellow travelers on this earth? So, what if mammoths were still alive today? The world would be richer, more complicated, and far more connected to its ancient past. They would bring hope, challenges, and lessons about how fragile and powerful life on Earth truly is.